Hello and welcome to Data Science for Everyone. Today I'll be guiding you through a lesson on Python iterators, comprehensions, and generators. These are key tools that make working with Python more powerful and flexible. Let's look at this example. We have written a for loop that prints the colors from this list of colors. Each time we loop through this list, we are using an iterator behind the scenes. A loop doesn't just work for lists. It can also move through each character in a string. For example, here we are iterating through each character of the word Python and printing them. We can also loop through sequences of numbers produced with the built-in range method. Objects like these are iterable, which allows Python to step through them in a loop. List, strings, and range objects are all examples of iterables. An iterable is any object that can return an iterator when we call the method iter on it. An iterator, on the other hand, is an object that produces values one at a time when we call the method next on it. That's exactly what Python's for loop is doing under the hood. It takes the iterable, creates an iterator, and keeps asking for the next value until it runs out. Let's look at this example. A list of fruits here is an iterable. That means Python knows how to give us an iterator from it. When we call iter on fruits, we create an iterator object that remembers where it is in the sequence. Each time we call the method next, the iterator gives us the next item. First apple, then banana, and finally cherry. This is exactly what happens behind the scenes in a for loop. The loop keeps calling next until there are no more values left. Let's look at another example. Here we are iterating over a list of numbers. Each next call gives us the next value. Once all items are consumed, Python raises a stop iteration error. Instead of calling next repeatedly, we can unpack all elements at once with the star operator. This will print everything in the iterator. But keep in mind that once all values are consumed, the iterator is empty, and we'll need to create a new one if we want to use it again. Dictionaries are iterable in Python as well. A Python dictionary is like a lookup table. Each item pairs a key, such as a name, with a value, such as a grade. The powerful .items method gives us both key and its matching value together, letting us process or print them side by side. The .keys and .values method loops through individual keys and values. These methods make it easy to perform operations involving dictionaries. Files in Python are iterable as well. Each line in a file acts as the next item in the iterator. Using iter and next, as shown here, lets us manually control the reading process line by line. After reading a line, the iterator moves to the next one automatically until it hits the end of file and raises stop iteration, just like with lists or dictionaries. This means that we can treat files like any other iterable in Python. Normally, when we loop over a list, we only get the values, but sometimes we need the position of each item. Enumerate solves this by pairing each value with its index. Here, we are enumerating over books and converting it to a list, which gives us a sequence of tuples. The first number is the index, and the second is the item itself. We can unpack the index and value directly using a loop. Enumerate creates pairs, and we can separate them. Here we are using idx for index and city for each city on the list. Notice the start equals to 1 argument. This tells enumerate where to begin counting. Instead of starting at 0, now the first item has index equals to 1. This is handy when our numbering should match something human-friendly, like a menu or a list in a report. There is another method called zip. With zip, we can join multiple iterables to create a single iterator of tuples. Let's look at this example. Here we are zipping the two lists to pair their values. Each tuple contains the elements at the same position from each original iterable, in this case teams and leagues. Instead of converting the zip object right away, we can iterate over it directly in a for loop, unpacking each tuple as we go. to print all the tuples inside the zip object at once, we can use the star operator. This unpacks all the contents automatically, as we can see in this code. After exploring how iterables and iterators work, let's tackle a common real-world problem: handling massive data files that just won't fit into the memory in one go. When dealing with a huge file, trying to load it all into memory at once can crash the computer or make everything slow. By using the chunk size option in readCSV method of pandas, it will give us the file in small manageable parts called chunks, almost like reading a book chapter by chapter, instead of the whole book at once. In this example, each chunk contains 2000 rows. The code processes each chunk separately by adding up just the value column for that piece and storing the result in a list. At the end, all the partial answers are combined with sum, giving the total without ever holding the entire file in memory at the same time. This method is much safer for big data and helps avoid running out of RAM. While the previous approach keeps every partial sum in a list, it is even more efficient to keep a single running total. This method adds each chunk's sum directly to the total as soon as it is processed, like keeping a tally while counting items in boxes, instead of writing down each box's count and adding them up later. This approach further trims memory usage. All that's ever stored is the current total and the chunk being processed, not a list of every chunk's result. It's a best practice for large-scale data, simple, fast, and memory-friendly. Now let's look at list comprehensions. Imagine we start with a list of numbers, and we need to create another list where every value is just a little bigger. Say each one has 2 added to it. One way to solve it is to begin with an empty list, loop through the original one, add 2 to every number, and then append the results. This works fine, but takes more steps, both in writing and running the code. Let's see how we can speed things up. This is where list comprehensions shine. Let's look at this example to understand list comprehension. Inside square brackets, we first write the expression we want to create. Here, n plus 2 for n in nums directly gives us the transformed list. Let's break down this expression. A list comprehension always has 3 pieces working together. Iterable, in this case the list, which is nums, a loop variable, which is n that represents each elements from nums, and an expression, n plus 2, that defines how each element should be transformed. The result is a new list without writing extra for loops or append calls. Let's look at another example. Here we are comparing 2 ways of doing the same task, squaring numbers in a list. The first version uses a traditional for loop where we manually build a new list step by step. The second version uses a list comprehension, which lets us express the same logic in a single compact line. The key advantage of list comprehensions is not just brevity, they work with any iterable, not just lists, which make them very flexible. We don't always need to start with an existing list. Here we use range, which generates numbers on the fly. The comprehension directly loops through those numbers and builds the list of even numbers. This shows how comprehensions naturally pair with functions like range. To reiterate, a list comprehension always has 3 core ingredients. An iterable, here it's range 1 to 6, which generates numbers from 1 through 5. A loop variable, n, which represents each number from that iterable, and an expression, n times 3, that tells Python how to transform each n into the new list's values. Putting those all together inside brackets, Python builds a new list in one line. The structure is so consistent that once you spot these 3 ingredients, you can read or write any comprehension, even more complex ones with conditions for multiple loops. Now let's look at comprehensions for nested loops. This example shows how nested loops lets us create combinations of elements. The outer loop picks a from 0 and 1. For each a, the inner loop picks b from 4 and 5. Together, they form pairs a and b that we append to the list. The result looks like coordinates, all possible pairings of elements from two lists. This step-by-step build-up prepares us for how list comprehensions handle the same idea. Now we see the condensed version of the nested loop on the right, but notice how the three core ingredients are still there. The benefit is concise code. We get the same result in one line. The trade-off is readability. With more loops or conditions, comprehension syntax can get harder to read at first glance. Now that we have covered the basics, let's take a look at some advanced features of comprehensions. We can add a condition to filter the values that go into a comprehension. In this example, we only include numbers that are even and then square them. The % symbol here is the modulo operator. It gives the remainder after dividing one number by another. A number modulo 2 equals 0 only if the number is even. We can also apply a condition directly to the output expression. In this code snippet, if the number is even, the result will be its square. Otherwise, it will be 0. This lets us define what happens in both cases. Comprehensions can be used in dictionaries as well. For dictionaries, instead of using square brackets, we have to use curly braces. The syntax includes a key-value pair separated by a colon. Here, for each n from range 1 to 6, the key is n and the value is -n. So the result is a dictionary where every positive number from 1 to 5 is mapped to its negative counterpart. Dictionary comprehensions are especially useful for quickly transforming or remapping data into key value structures. Now that we are more comfortable with comprehensions, let's move on to generators, which are closely related and will make a lot of sense once we see them in action. Here is a list comprehension that builds the first 10 even numbers. Now, if we swap the square brackets for parentheses, we don't get a list, we get a generator object instead. So what exactly is a generator object? Think of it like a comprehension, but it doesn't actually build the full list at once. Instead, it produces the items one at a time when needed. When we loop through a generator, it gives us the elements that a list comprehension would have produced. And if we want, we can wrap it with the list function to turn it into an actual list. We can also fetch items one by one with the next method. This is an example of lazy evaluation. Values aren't created until they're really needed. It's very useful when working with large sequences, since we don't have to store the entire list in memory. So what's the need of generators over comprehensions? Imagine iterating over a sequence of size 1 million or more. Using regular comprehensions can overwhelm the system's memory. But with a generator, that's not a problem, since it only produces values as needed. Anything we can do with comprehensions, like adding conditions, we can also do with generators. In this example, the generator only yields squared values of odd numbers. Beyond expressions, we can also make generator functions. They look like regular functions, but instead of returning a value with return, they yield values one at a time with the yield keyword. Each call pauses the function at the point until the next value is requested. Here is a generator that produces integers starting from 0 up through n. Each time it is called, it yields the next integer and pauses, continuing from where it left off until it reaches n. To use this generator, we call the function as usual. It returns a generator object that we can loop through. This lets us create highly customizable generators that behave just the way we want. With that, we have come to an end of Python iterators, comprehensions, and generators. I hope you have liked this tutorial. Please like, comment, and share our content if you like them. Thank you.